Welcome everyone to the show. I'm your host Don Vic, and you know I'm in the building. Um, so today we have a special guest all the way from London, UK. You know what it is. We travel all around the world, bring special guests to the show, and talk to them about what they're doing, what they got going on, and what they're doing in the present day. Today, actually, my co-host was at work, so he'll be on the show for the next segment at 3 o'clock. So he'll be here with me. Um, Real quick, just want to shout out everyone that's been on the show, everyone that support the show and share the show. I want to thank you guys for that, and also tune in at 3 p.m., 5 p.m., and 7 p.m. We got some great guests coming on the show, so don't miss it. Stay tuned because it's going to be a great show. Also, just want to real quick shout out the JoJo Show. Good friend of mine. She has a podcast show as well. Just big shout out to her and her show. And so we're going to start the show. We got Mr. John Morris online right now. We're going to bring him on the show and we're going to talk to him and find out exactly what he got going on. All right. So everyone, please welcome John Morris to the show. John, how you doing, brother?
I am doing very, very well, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Good.
So how's everything out there in London? And
Well, right now I'm actually in Scotland.
Scotland. Oh, you're in Scotland. Okay.
Here's the crazy thing. Right now, on any show that we normally do, we normally talk about the weather because, like yourselves, shows worldwide, everyone has different weather. And over here, it's really, really weird right now because it's almost spring-like. We should be normally expecting torrential rain, storms, high winds, all that kind of stuff. Right now, we've got flowers in bloom, and there's some crazy stuff that's going on just now. So, but we're all good, very, very happy, very, very thankful. Things are getting back to normal, seemingly, with all this COVID stuff. So, yeah, everything's good.
Oh, good. Scotland over here is cold. It's cold as hell over here.
I've been hearing.
Yeah, I'm from the north side, so it's very, very cold out here, and it's like 13 degrees. Everything freezing out here,
Oh yeah.
But other than that, it's a great day, sunny out, and we're here doing our thing.
Absolutely. And it's nice when you can do that. I've got friends up in Canada that are saying that they're getting excited because they're due for a heat wave of like minus 16. For us here, that's really, really cold. But I suppose when you've been used to minus 30, then it is a bit of a heat wave, I suppose.
That's right. Because it can really get cold out here, like really, really cold. I feel like sometimes we feel like we're in Russia. You know how Russia be cold.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yes, it be cold like that. Shout out to Bella Livy. She's in the building. She's watching. Big shout out to Bella Livy. So now that you said about you said something interesting. You said something about the COVID. How is the COVID?
Over here, it's a crazy thing. When all of this started, you see a lot of people running around frantic and everything as to be expected, because a lot of people do stuff when they're scared. But one of the things I think that came to me earlier on was, people over here certainly were talking about, well, this is an opportunity for the world to change and for everything to be amazing and, fill in the blanks. And in my mind, and eventually publicly, I started saying, it ain't going to happen. Much to the dismay of everyone that was listening, like, what do you mean it ain't going to happen? And I said, well, people are going to revert back to their default setting when all this is done, because that is human nature to do that. And that's exactly what's happened now. People are back clubbing, people are back, at work and fill in the blank. You've got all these different variants now of COVID, obviously, around the world. But over here, mask restriction is being dropped. People are being able to meet up in the houses and everything like that. And I think, as strange as it is to say this to a lot of people's ears, it was a time of great opportunity for people, because a lot of people were paid, certainly over here in the UK, for a 2-year period. And when have you ever had a 2-year paid vacation where basically, you can do and study and be what you want to be? And a lot of people sat there completely freaking out about this, and they were more focused on the external, scenarios and events that were going on than actually what was going on and what could be. Some people did, take that opportunity and advantage. But this isn't a new thing. That's the crazy thing. COVID has been around, 8,000 years before Christ.
Right.
This is not a new thing at all.
Right. And people,
You guys actually, while we're on the subject.
yeah, and people getting paid and get to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people get accustomed to that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So when it stops and they got to go back to work, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where we examine from a mental health point of view as well, both while they were at home and how that had an effect, but also now that they're back to work and how that's having effect as well. So it's an interesting observation, really, when you look at it.
Right. So how's the mandate for the vaccine? Are they mandating that on you guys to say?
Over here, reportedly there will not be a mandate. That was actually it was one of the governmental officials, and I forget the guy's name that had said that. But I see a lot of people there that are being forced, especially in the United States and in Paris and in Europe as well, and now in Australia, that people are being forced into, you've got to take this, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. Doing your research a little bit more, you're like, it's not as cut and dry as that. And I think there's a lot more to this story than meets the eye. Certainly as I've been researching it and following it through as well, not only from a scientific point of view for psychology and the other areas that I work in, but also from a point of view of being able to present the best information that I can. But over here, at least, we are not being mandated at this point.
That's awesome. And it's hard to to try to pinpoint and figure out what's really going on, because there's so many stories, so many things, so many people saying different things. So it's confusing.
Absolutely.
It's very confusing. And the fact that, like here in the States, certain places it's like they say you don't have a choice. That's it. Because if you don't take the vaccine, you can't fly.
Correct.
You lose your job if you have a state job or you're working for anything that has to do with government work. If you don't take the vaccine, you have a choice. Either you take it or you lose your job.
Yeah.
And me personally, my opinion, I don't think it's fair for humanity, for the people to be in that circumstance, in that position, to have your back against the wall where you have to make a choice like that.
Yeah.
I think that those that want to take the vaccine can take the vaccine. Those that don't want to take it, at least you can take the COVID test, right? And know that you're negative. Because I know people that got the vaccine and still are getting sick. So what's the whole purpose? What's the whole purpose of taking it if you're still getting sick, right?
The whole thing about it as well, like I said, when you explore it a little bit more, because something you said there, got my brain thinking a little bit more. People do some really crazy stuff when they're frightened. And this is, again, like I said, this is not just with COVID. This has happened so many times throughout history. And people do some really, really crazy stuff when they're frightened. And like you said, I mean, to put people in a position, especially in the United States, where you're saying, look, if you don't take the vaccine, you're out of a job, which means you can't pay your mortgage, you can't take care of your kids. That, to me, instantly tells me there's something not right here. You know what I mean? Whenever someone is being forced upon or impressioned upon, it's almost like a salesperson trying to get a speedy decision out of a potential client, because, like I say, and fear can do that. You've seen, like I say, all the way through down history, whether it be religion, whether it be politics, whatever, fill in the blank. When you get people and a mass group of people scared, then, it's like, this is, it's dangerous. It's very, very, very dangerous. And as you rightly said, I mean, you look at the some of the statistics, and again, it fluctuates, it varies. I'm only going to tell you what I know as of right this moment, that a lot of people that have been getting ill have taken the vaccine. A lot of them were fine before taking the vaccine and ended up either dying or getting ill. I mean, the other thing, certainly over here, is there's certain tests that are done with regards to, having COVID. But here's the great thing. If you die, for example, and you've been in hospital and you have COVID, and people are saying, well, he or she died of COVID. No, he or she may have died of cancer or getting hit by a bus, but records will still show that you got hit or that you had COVID. The other crazy thing about the test that they've done is inaccurate, because it's meant to work on a certain frame scale no higher than about 30, and what they've actually been testing in is 40 or 50, which means that the results, and again, this is just what I know, but the results are proving inaccurate. But like you say, I mean, if people feel safer going ahead taking the vaccine, then go ahead, but make sure to do your research. It's really important to do that. And don't be surprised when you get companies like Pfizer that are cropping up that have, questionable backgrounds and things. But equally, if you don't want to take the vaccine, and you don't want that stuff swimming around in your body because you've lost trust in the government and you've lost trust in even medical services, then again, I think that has to be explored. And I think probably within our lifetime, certainly a lot more of this will come to light as time goes on.
Right. I agree 100%. And, the fact that we don't know what's actually in the vaccine itself,
Correct.
right? So why would you put something in your body that you have no idea what's going into your body or how your body's going to react
Correct.
to that vaccine? And you're right. A lot of people that go to the hospital be sick from other things, and they say, "Oh, you have COVID." How do we know that? We're not doctors.
Correct.
We're taking their opinion on it, and we know it's all big money. This is about capital, and but I feel that people shouldn't be put with their back against the wall with a choice. If you don't take the vaccine, you can lose your job. You can't fly. You can't shop. You can't go into certain places and shop because you're not vaccinated. Another interesting thing I want to talk about is a friend sent me a link. I'm not sure it was in California. I don't know what state it was, but they had refrigerators full of drinks and stuff like that and produce, and order to get into that refrigerator, you have to scan your hand or your forehead to this, to be able to get in and get your produce or whatever it is. That's insane.
Notice how I'm not surprised.
Yeah, you're not.
The reason I'm not surprised is because, again, it helps knowing history, because as Bon Jovi said, the names and faces change, but the situations really don't. And you go back through ancient scriptures, ancient texts, and all of this stuff is there. It's right in front of you, whether it's talking about getting chips in your hand or implants in your head. The chip has existed. I think it came around, to my knowledge, possibly maybe even as late as 17 years ago, out in Switzerland or in Sweden, where they were talking about businesses, and that you could only access, because we're getting rid of all door handles. They were all getting rid of, anything where someone had to touch, and it was all going to be scanned. Wow. Do I believe that this could be the first, of the stuff? You never know. Do I believe there's a bigger agenda that's going on? Well, there's always an agenda going on, so it's knowing history. History is a very, very big part of it. And that's why obviously when we talked, and I sent you the bio and everything, I specialize in 6 very specific areas, because at the end of the day, when all of this began, I had person after person of all genres and niches and everything that was going through, terrified, saying, is this the mark of the beast? Is this the sign of the end times? Is this? And then they get terrified into religiosity and in religious wars because they've heard it and it's frightening. And I can understand that fear, because before I went through my big changes and everything, last year, I went through those same things 10 or 15 years ago, where anybody that doesn't match up to a certain standard of what, the one world government, thinks we should be, can be rounded up and killed. That's one of the stories that was out there. Now, I'm not saying that, folks. I want to be very clear about this. Don't start panicking. Because at the end of the day, your greatest enemy, believe it or not, can be yourself, and it can be your mind.
That's right.
So it's really important, I think, to be aware of all that's going on. But it doesn't surprise me what you've said. It doesn't even, now that I think about it, doesn't surprise me that it's in the United States. Certainly not in California. Certainly not in California.
Right. So it's a very touchy subject because it's happening, right?
Yeah.
It's happening as we speak.
That's when it becomes more scary. It's no longer theoretical. It's now this is happening right in front of us.
Right. It definitely and the fact that it's happening, the fact that you can't pinpoint what's really going on because there's so much stuff going out there, so many doctors saying so many things, Don Fauci saying some things. So right now, the people that are watching are probably like, what is going on? Their head is going all over the place. Should I take the vaccine? Well, if I don't take it, I can't fly. I need to fly because I'm in the business of entertainment. I need to be certain places, but I don't want to take it because I don't know what's in it. I don't know what's the big agenda behind all this. You can see there's something bigger than what we see. Mm-hmm. Those that can expand their mind, bigger, can see there's something going on behind all this. What it is, we don't know, but we know it's there. Right now, you said that scanning, that some part of the countries are doing now where they're taking everything and they're scanning. Like you're right, the Bible says the mark of the beast. Yeah. So it seems like what the Bible is saying, everything is coming to light, and you said that whatever that comes into light. So what do we do as people? What's your opinion? What do we do as people when we're put in this situation? Like, what do we do? What can we do?
That's a big question for sure. I think honestly that the first thing that I would suggest to anybody is, and I'm seeing some of the comments down here, and this is obviously a really I think important thing for a lot of people. With regards to the vaccine, with regards to taking chips and how it's all been conditioned, something that, just before I answer your question, something that really caught my attention earlier on with this whole story with COVID, the entire world was in lockdown.
Right.
First time ever, to my knowledge, that's happened. Spanish flu happened, within the last, couple of centuries and whatnot. But the entire world was not in lockdown. This thing, the entire world was in lockdown. But something that really caught my interest was the fact that 5G, which had been, people have been standing up against install. You probably know where I'm going with this. It was installed during the first lockdown.
Yes, it was.
And the amount of times that people came back to me and said, "Oh, look, it's happening. This is what's happening," and genuinely terrified. And it did catch my attention. I'm like, if the entire world is meant to be in lockdown, no one can travel anywhere. People have been fighting this stuff. Why is it now been just installed, whether you agree with it or you don't? So that was the first thing that got my mind wrong. To answer your question, honestly, I think the first thing that people need to do is to go within themselves, because I think, everybody's looking for an external answer to the internal problem. And when you're terrified, when you're frightened, you watch the news. I don't have the news on at all, because at the end of the day, it's lost all credibility with me, because originally it was designed to report on what the government was doing in the United States, and it was designed what royalty and parliament was doing over here in the UK.
That's right.
So that's what it was designed to do. When they realized that people weren't that interested, they started reporting on the bad news. That's why you very rarely, if ever, have good news on the TV. Why? Because it doesn't sell, because people have been conditioned to that mind. People are now more conditioned than ever. And I'm actually working on a brand new book. It's the next in my Battles We'll Face series. And this one's going to be for teenagers, talking about how people are trying to find their identity. They identify themselves by their sexuality, by their gender, by even when they can't identify themselves by those things, they identify themselves by the negative stuff, like the mental health issues and battles and things like that. And it's like, guys, this is not who you are. This is one tiny part of you. So when you've got all these things coming up, first thing I would say, turn off the news, because it ain't going to do you any good. Whether it's true or not, it is not going to do you any good. And if there is something that you need to hear, you're going to hear it because either a friend will share it with you or it'll come up on social media. That's one of the best things about social media, is if you need to hear something and it's affecting your part of the world or your wider world, it is going to go up on your radar. The second thing is, quite honestly, like I said, go within. I don't get affected by a whole lot of these situations right now because in my mind, I have practiced learning to create that little bit of separation between the situation and what's going on with me internally. So a lot of stuff can be going on around me, but it doesn't mean I need to wear it. And it's important to observe the situation, but not partake of it, because otherwise you aren't thinking clearly. You end up thinking fearfully. When you end up thinking fearfully, as I said, people do some really, really crazy stuff. So I think that's possibly the first thing that I would recommend doing. And don't look at responding to it out of anger, because whoever is doing this, if there is something going on, is doing this either for their own gains, and there's a number of stories that I can tell you from firsthand accounts. But at the same point, it's like, there's a lot more going on there that you can't control. The only thing you can control is you and
That's
what's
right.
going on inside.
Right.
And fear and anger will not help you.
I agree 100%. Me, this is my opinion. This is what I see. I see a pattern.
Yeah.
Right. I see a pattern. And I hope that what I see is not what it is, because if it is what I see, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be scary, and it can go out to even a civil war. Right.
Oh yeah. Well, his and obviously I'm not going to mention any names because I think it's important not to. But there was a certain group of people, shall we say, that 8 weeks before the COVID lockdown happened, actually had a trial run. Okay, so that's strange. This same group of people are also responsible for buying up Native American land. Okay, that's really strange. The same group of people are obviously, are also very, very affluent financially. They're also, involved with a lot of pharmaceuticals. And you start to look at the point and it's like, okay, is the person that came to my mind at the beginning of all of this the person that's actually, or you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah, it's moving all the wires.
Right. Even the president of the United States is not the president of the United States.
Of course,
the president of the United States is just the front man, is just the face. The people above are the ones that are actually in control. That's why it doesn't matter whether you vote Democrat or Republican or
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because people be like, "Oh, you need to vote because it matters." It don't matter. They do what they want.
Well, I honestly think you guys should have a vote of no confidence.
Exactly.
People I've seen running, I'm just like, would you really want them leading your country? And we have the same issues over here. But it's not the person that is the front guy. That's just the face. That's just the image that's being presented.
Right. And he's told to say what they want him to say.
Correct.
Correct. So and I know that, and that's the scary part, that that we know it's a front man. We know that this higher power. But the agenda, what they're planning, what we know is that we know they want control, right?
Of course.
So, in which they do, they control the world. But one thing they can't control, or they don't have control of, is us. So, and this is just me thinking, right?
I think a thought's just flown into my head as to what you are thinking. Continue.
Right. And so, like I said, I see a pattern. The food chain, no food. They're going to control the food, right? Now, this is where everything comes into play. The vaccine, the chip, all comes into play. Either you do it or you don't eat or you die. That's just me saying. That's my opinion. Um, people start to war because there's no food, there's no nothing. People start civil war. Boom! Here comes the army. Here comes the National Guards.
Yeah.
Now what happens? They take control of the country. Boom. And then they put up the law, martial law. Now you have no law, right? Now you do what they say, and you're stuck in your house and you move accordingly how they want you to move. So, those that don't want to be vaccinated will probably be put in some separate place where they say either you're going to take it or this is going to happen. So, and then I'm thinking the chip, because I've seen some stuff online and they're talking about zombie. I don't know if you ever heard of that. The zombie stuff where they put stuff and people can turn into zombies and start killing one another. As crazy as it sounds.
Well, think about it. You look at a zombie. Yes, it's the living dead, but originally the zombie was nothing more than a mutation.
That's right.
There's something that a lot of people don't know about because they always come back. Oh, yeah, how are they going to raise the dead? And it's like, no, actually, a zombie. The literal word and the original meaning of it back throughout time was all about a mutation. Now, could that happen? Of course it could.
The technology we have nowadays is unbelievable.
Of course.
And like you said, we only see what they want us to see. Yep. But people like you and I and others that can spread our minds to a bigger screen can see it happening without even being in front of us.
Oh, yeah.
So, they need people like you and I to come on these shows and kind of like breathe through it and breathe through these situations and topics that people might be not aware of.
See, the thing about it is I found a long time ago when I was a youth minister that you talk about God and you say the word God, people's shutters usually come down. Where I am now, I call God the Divine Spirit. It doesn't matter really what the name is, and then you refer to, and you always put it back on the piece. So you're not talking about religion, you're not teaching on religion, and you watch those shutters come down when you tell someone like you, for example, you're a divine spirit having a temporary human experience.
Right.
But if I said, Jesus loves you, a lot of people hear that, bang, shutters come down. Because again, they've had such bad experiences of religion. They've had such bad relationships with Jesus as a result of the church, and so many other things that go on. But when you actually can get in a person's level and break it down in a different way, then all of a sudden the shutters, come down. We have a nice relaxed conversation about this because there's two options really when you do a show like this. You're either completely insane talking about conspiracy theories and you don't have a clue what you're talking about, or you're fully with it, you're fully I am, and what you're saying is stuff that you have seen, like you were saying, and that you can actually back up with fact, because I never teach on anything that I have not firsthand experience in. That's why for a long time I didn't talk about this with our audience at all, because I was like, guys, okay, you're asking me questions, you're asking me lots of questions, but I want to make sure that the facts that I provide for you are as close to being accurate and fully there as possible.
Right. And I'm glad we're talking about this because
I think it's an important conversation to have for sure.
Yeah, definitely 100%. Society is being manipulated. This is my cousin Joseph. He's from Florida, Tampa, Florida. Big shout out to him. And John Joseph is a special individual, super intelligent. I mean, like super. When I say he should be like working for NASA, because he's that clever.
That's so cool.
He studies the Bible. He studies, science, and he's like very, very clever. And I think that he's broken some codes that no one can break. And he got theories that that are very interesting. He's been on my show before, and when he came here and he started talking about what he knows about Bible and how he breaks down the Bible, what the Bible is trying to say. Because when you read the Bible, you read it and you understand certain things, but he breaks it down to where you know uh what's said in the Bible is actually you can see it happening, like
Oh yeah.
happening, and it's just so crazy. You gotta see an episode of him because I want to bring him back on the show soon because he's just amazing. He blows my mind with stuff that he researches and and are so true. And and this topic about COVID and what we see happening, um, I think we're accurate with what we're with what we're thinking and what our opinions are on it. I think that people are so used to lies.
Hmm.
We've been for so many years we've been told lies that that's how our mind. So anything that comes up from the top is said we believe it or we
Yeah.
have to do it because that's the way we're accustomed to be. But when you have people like you and I and others that say, "Wait a minute, this ain't right," we got to look back and see at the big picture. So when you bring it out and we speak about it, those that are not uh, that their mind don't expand as
Hmm.
big as ours would say, "Man, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you're just saying those are theories, you know." But then when it happens,
Yeah.
they'd be like, "Wait a minute, John was right."
Well, here's the interesting thing for you, and I agree with what Joseph is saying, what you're saying, what a lot of people are saying. Human beings have been conditioned pretty much since the dawn of time. They were first conditioned with religion. There's a big thing for you. And it doesn't matter what religion it is, you can
Right.
pick them and you go right the way down through time. I personally, because I worked for it for 15 years, you look at the church, and people had said to me, talking about church plants and things. And I often say, please don't, because there's enough churches out there. They don't need another church. What they actually need to do is learn how to work together and get past their own garbage and their own ideas and their own theories of God. Because let me tell you, you're all wrong. Simple as that. Because what you think you know about God, is a tiny, tiny fraction of what God and who God really is. That's why I don't label myself any longer, under any religious
Right.
ideologies and institution, because I just found now that I am so much freer, and God is presenting Himself to me more as to who God is,
That's
which is
right.
interesting. But what Joseph was saying about society being conditioned, absolutely, like I said, with religion. It happened. You had to think a certain way. You had to behave in a certain way. You had to dress in a certain way. You had to perform in a certain way. That happened with politics. That happened with your work. That happened with government. That happened with societies. Um, how many times have you gone into a place where just because you dress differently or you ask different questions, they snub you? And
That's
we've
right.
actually, my wife and I have been into, gosh, maybe two handfuls of churches within the last 5 years that have done this, because I was a theological student. And again, a lot of people had said, oh, well, you ask questions. It's like, well, that's what theology is. It's the study of God.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
what you're going to do, folks.
That's right.
Um, so when you start looking at that and really exploring, how society can be manipulated, it doesn't take a whole lot. You said something really, really key, that I want to really bring to light. This is the first time I've ever spoken about this publicly. But again, everything is divine. So, I don't have any issues with talking about it. People talk to me about going back through history, and it's the exact words that you use, going back through history. The issue that now exists, certainly in the United States, is your history is being rewritten. And I don't know if you're aware of this. I don't know if the folks on the show are aware of this, but from what I've heard directly from 8 states in the United States, and even what we've got going over here, they are trying to convince people that the Holocaust did not happen and World War II did not happen.
Right.
This is the kind of thing that's going on right now. And, this is exactly what you said, with people believing it. and saying, oh, well, the Holocaust never happened. It was all, photo edited, stuff. It's like, why the heck would they bother doing that? And why would there be so much evidence that's there? This is the thing. People are ignoring the evidence when it's right in front of them.
That's right.
And then they turn around and say, well, no, that didn't happen. World War II never happened. So, 100 million people didn't actually just die. They were just wiped off the face of the planet. That's a bigger conspiracy theory than World War II.
That's right.
Like, guys, you have to wake up to what's going on. The scary thing is that unfortunately there are more people that are switched off, that would turn around and say, no, this is nonsense, this is rubbish. That's why, like you said with Joseph, I make it a point, I make it a special point to take the complicated things that people are going through, whether it's mental health issues, break them down so you can understand them. Anxiety, I can sum it up in one sentence. It's a fear of the past or a fear of the future. It's a fear of what has been or a fear of what could be. That's what anxiety is. We are not born with it. It is something that we actually birth and create. Now, you can be born with an anxiety strand. I know I'm going off topic here, but I'm doing this deliberately. You can be born with an anxiety strand, but it comes because you have not learned how to deal with your own inner engineering, self-mastery stuff. That is what we help people do. We break it down and say, right, people talk about anxiety maintenance, depression maintenance, stress maintenance. All of those things you should not be maintaining. You need to know that you can overcome anxiety. How do I know this? Because I did it. And it's not that difficult. It's about taking control of your mind and of your thoughts. And that is what happens when you start choosing what you listen to, as opposed to being programmed by TV, being programmed by radio, being programmed by internet. Why do you think they call them TV programs, radio programs? Programmed.
That's right. 100%. 100%. I used to get anxieties, and for me to go to let me tell you something. For me to go to the hospital, it has to be major. Anxieties. I don't take pills for headaches either. I don't.
I hear you.
I just wear it out. I wear it out. I'm old fashioned. My grandmother used to take care of us, and she used to go when there was something wrong interiorly, inside or out. We didn't go to the doctors. She'll go right back in the woods. She'll grab some leaves and some stuff, dirt, whatever she had to do. She'll go in there, she'll cook something up. She'll say, drink this tea. I'll drink it. 2 hours later, I was like Superman.
Correct.
I was like Superman. What I've noticed when I've
because the whole earth contains everything that we actually need. That's the crazy thing.
Exactly.
I want to talk about medication momentarily, but go on with that thought. I'm intrigued.
Right. So, when I used to get a lot of anxiety, and I finally went to the doctors, because I said, man, this is crazy. And they were giving me medication. I just felt more depressed. I felt like, wait a minute, I'm feeling worse than I was before. So when I stopped taking it, I started feeling a little better, and I said, okay, this is internal. This is me. This is something I'm creating. So let me figure it out how to get it away from me. And I did. I started calming down. I started doing positive things, and just kind of like, giving myself time to relax. And my anxiety just disappeared. But there's a lot of things happening here, and I just want my people all over the world to wake up. Because it doesn't matter if you're in Scotland, you're here in the US, Russia, wherever you at, we're all going through the same symptoms, we're all going through the same thing, and at the same time, we're the same people.
Absolutely.
So I just want to bring awareness to our people of what's going on in our country, because we're being lied to, right? And people need to wake up, and not everything you see or read is 100%.
Correct.
Like you said, everything's being rewritten. Right.
Oh yeah.
Now, good point. You made a good point. Now, this is me saying, I'm not bringing down the Bible, or I'm not saying it, but from when the Bible first was written,
Mhm.
right, to where we at today, how many hands have that Bible have gone through, right, to where we at today, and has been tampered with?
Oh yeah,
Me-
I can
this
tell
is
you
me. I
straight
may
away.
be wrong and I may be right. I'm not saying that it happened, but I'm saying,
Oh, I can tell you right now it has.
right, it's been tampered. So what do we believe?
Well,
How can I believe something that's been tampered with for so many years, and maybe we being programmed by the Bible? You
many have.
understand?
Many have. Here's the thing. I don't know if you're aware of this, and I'm sure Joseph probably will be aware of
Oh
this.
yeah,
The
Joseph.
Bible actually used to be 88 books. It's now 66. The reason that a lot of those books were kicked out was because, without going into the whole story, I'll just give the simple version. They weren't deemed holy enough, or they didn't pertain to God enough. Hebrews, James, and other books of the Bible were very, very nearly kicked out because they weren't holy enough. That's why the reason you've now got the 66 books of the Bible. So how many books of the Bible? Now, there are a number of books out there, and I've seen the ancient texts, or some of the ancient texts that remained and it's called the Dead Sea Scrolls, or the lost books of the Bible, or, and there's some out there that are really out there. There's others out there that you're like, the way I look at it now is, I know a lot of people, and again, I've been there as well, stand on the full Bible, authority, scripture and everything like that. And I am not here to, challenge anybody's religious views at all, because I don't honestly care enough
Right.
to challenge anybody
Right.
on their beliefs. Your beliefs are something that's usually been handed to you and you've built upon them, and that's your
right.
secure foundation. And when people get frightened and they say, well, this guy just doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah, maybe. Hey, I wouldn't be the first. But the reality is that, when people get frightened, that's when they start fighting back. And with regards to what you were asking about the Bible, what do we believe? What do we stand upon? I think the honest answer is, it's called the knowing. So, your beliefs are often handed to you. So they come from your father, your mother, your granddad, whoever. Your knowing is what you know internally.
That's
And
right.
you know in yourself more often than not, even despite of being conditioned, because it's the divine spirit within inside of you, whether you're Native American, whether you're Buddhist, whether you're Christian, Hindu, whatever, that is leading and guiding. The Apocrypha that Joseph was quoting there, that's another series of books that's there. You can find that in the New Revised Standard Version, I believe, which is much thicker book. But there are a lot of books, not just the Apocrypha, but the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Lost Gospels, so much more that's out there. And I think that the ultimate thing that you've got to ask yourself with regards to what you believe, in some ways, what makes sense. And it's not what makes sense to your visible eyes, what you see externally. It's what makes sense in here and in here.
That's right.
Everyone is being guided in one form or another. And, I think it's just the importance of being aware of that more than anything. And I think that's where people get scared. That's why they go to church. Because I honestly believe that people go to church because they don't believe enough in themselves that they can hear directly from the voice of God or directly from the Spirit of God, because they've been conditioned that way.
That's
You know,
right.
and it used to be you can only hear from God by the rabbi or by the priest if you're Catholic. It was like the minister was the divine authority of God. And then I worked for the church for 15 years, and I was like, when you see some of the things that I saw, I was like, really?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's when I really started, and because I wrestled with it for a long time, and I was like, is it okay for me to feel like this? Is it okay for me to even be thinking like this? And then last year, an amazing transformation took place to the point where, again, anxiety dropped for me within 2 hours. It was really interesting what you were saying, and I'm sure we'll circle back down to that. But anxiety dropped away for me for, within 2 hours, and that was a result of Wayne Dyer's teaching. Wayne Dyer was a Taoist, which moved almost sort of a split movement from Buddhism and even mysticism. But what I found was it was almost like God was saying to me, and Jesus and the Holy Spirit and everything was saying to me, you know, okay, you're at this point in your journey. You've gone as far as you can within the realms of this religion and this institution. Now be the divine spirit who you are. Spread this message, you know, that people are a divine spirit having a temporary human experience, which means we are eternal, which means these little issues that are going on, yes, they're really big because they're here in the now, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a tiny, tiny fragment and drop in the ocean. You know, and it's, I think it, if anything, it keeps a person grounded as to who they are in their identity, as opposed to being terrified. Now, what you were saying, you know, before with regards to anxiety and stuff, it doesn't surprise me at all. What's, I think, more alarming is teenagers now have been conditioned in such a way that anxiety is normal. And they tell that to other people, certainly here in the UK, oh, it's all right, it's normal to be anxious. No, it's not. Because whenever you normalize something, it means that you then, basically that you don't take responsibility for actually trying to improve it. You know, if I normalized, for example, having a broken leg, well, a broken leg is not normal. It comes as a result of something happening. But if I normalize it, it means I'm never going to rehab. It means I'm never going to do anything. So therefore, my leg is just going to stay permanently broken because I've conditioned myself that it's normal. Whereas actual normal for me is being able to walk on two legs. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a book that I've got just seedling ideas at the moment, and it's called The World That Works in Reverse, because everything now that is going on in our world is completely counter to what the reality is. People are looking for external, like you were saying, like we both said, people are looking for external solutions to anxiety when the solution is in here. You know, it's that simple. The only time I recommend medication is if someone is clinically, as in their DNA, chemically depressed, because then they need their serotonin levels you know, heightened or lowered. But aside from that, I explore all options with people before I ever recommend them seeing a doctor. Because again, like a lot of people, I'd lost trust in the medical services just over here, just from my own experiences.
Yeah, I have as well. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm in the Matrix.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do at the moment.
I swear, I feel like I'm in the Matrix. I'll be like, what's going on here? You know,
it's almost like you're playing a game where you've got to figure out the rules. And Robert Kiyosaki, a financial genius from the 1950s and even present, you know, he talks about this. It's like everything is a game, and you just got to figure out the rules. Right. And when you turn something into a study, all of a sudden you can make anything happen. You know, I built up an art business. I didn't have a clue how to do it, but I made it into a study. I did the same with my books because I kind of figured, you know, 200 years from now, people are probably not going to remember me. 200 years in the past, my grandfather wasn't even a thought. So I'm here for a time such as now to reach people and touch lives as we're doing in this exact moment with you. It's not a mistake that we're here and we're doing this. So it's exciting for me. And absolutely, Joseph, Rich Dad Poor Dad was the title of the book series. And, you know, it's, if anybody has, he's got, I think it was 2017 that this one was written, and it was called Fake. And he talks about fake money. People are always trying to accumulate fake money, and the American dollar and the same as the British pound is worth very little, but it is worth more than Canadian. So sorry if you're in Canada right now, I feel for you. And same with Australia and New Zealand, because of how it's been used and how it's been conditioned and all of these things. But it's the same with the teachers. It's the same with so many things. There's so much fake stuff now in our world that people believe that to be the new norm. Boy, I was off on a tangent there.
Yeah, you know, there's so much stuff going on, and as the years, you know, keep rising to 2023, 24, we're going to see a lot of stuff that, you know, like when I was young, right? I used to watch the Jetsons and stuff like that. I didn't understand it, but there was clues.
Oh yeah,
all in those cartoons. That was all clues, and and this is where I say where people like you and I that can see things that other people can't see, where our mind expand to a certain level where we can see things and imagine things before they happen. I'm,
Oh yeah.
I'm that type of guy. Like I don't go to church, I don't read Bibles because I just don't like
Mhm.
I believe what I see or what my heart tells me to believe, and that's how I operate.
Mhm.
And most of the time, I'm gonna tell you 99.9% I'm right. You know,
There you go.
and so watching those cartoons and watching the Jetsons and stuff, and even the Flintstones,
Yes,
there were clues there,
of course.
clues for the future.
Mhm. I've done
And
very similar actually within my books. And one of the chapters I was working on today was again was talking about this. The fact that um, people are seeking their identity. Whether it's their sexuality, whether or not it's their gender, whether or not it's their mental illness, whether or not it's their family, their society, their geographic location, the fact that they want to call themselves human, or not these days. And it's like, guys, again, you are looking in the wrong place for the answer. And the problem with this is, again, they've been conditioned to that. So I've got two book series that are coming out right now. One is coming out in November. One is already out. It's called The Battle's Wheel Face. I've actually got the copy here.
okay,
Shameless plug. It's called The Battle's Wheel Face, Hope in Times of Uncertainty. And basically, I break down 40 of the most common issues that people are going through.
that's
And,
awesome.
make it, like I said, with anxiety, it's, I know in some ways I make it so simple to actually figure out. And I think in some ways it's been deliberately made difficult so as your average person can't understand it. And they just believe, well, I've got this now, so I'm stuck with it. My body was diagnosed with a condition called colitis, which is basically ulcers on your large intestine. I was diagnosed with that when I was 15 years old. I was bodybuilding at the time, doing very, very well. And, I was diagnosed with that. And only now, getting into that position, probably within the last 2 years, have I started saying, well, this isn't something I was just born with. Guess what? It's affected by your diet. It's affected by your stress. It's affected by the people you have in your life, what you consume, all that kind of stuff. It is going to manifest in one form or another. You put junk in, you sow junk seeds, you are going to get junk out. It is inevitable. And people think that they can avoid this. You can't. It's as
Right,
simple as that. You cannot. What you put in is going to manifest in one form or another.
right, facts. And my mom, when she rested, she passed away. But before she passed away, she was on medication, right? And she must have had, she was getting old timers, and she had diabetes,
Mhm,
right? Two things.
mhm.
But she had over 60 pills
Oh
that
yeah.
she was taking. So I didn't know that. I one day I go over there and I'm sitting, on a table, and she's sitting across from me, and her phone, she had like a little alarm where it rang and it tell her she had to take her medication. And I heard it ring. I'm like, Mom, what's that? She goes, Oh, I got to take my medication. I said, Oh, okay. I'm thinking, she's gonna go take a pill.
Mhm.
Man, she comes back with a big, it was like a suitcase
Oh yeah.
like this, and she opened it. It had all these pills.
Oh yeah.
She's taking one. She must have took like 15 pills. I said, Mom, what are you doing? She said, Oh, I got to take this for this. I got to take this for this.
Yeah.
I said, Wait a minute. I said, Wait a second. I said, how do you know that those pills are compatible with each other and
Well,
not making
that's
you
the
go
thing.
crazier?
Yeah.
Right.
That's the
So,
crazy thing that you take one pill and it counteracts something else, and then it counteracts something else, and so on and so on and so on.
right.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
so I said, something's wrong here. I said, I'm not a doctor, but I know you taking all those pills, something's going to go wrong in your system or in your head. So a week later goes by, she's going to the hospital. I said, Mom, I want to go with you. So I went with her, and she's talking to her doctor. And I said to him, Listen, I want to ask you a question. He goes, Yeah, what is it? I said, Why is my mother what is my mother taking for her medication? He goes, oh, he's taking this. I said, why is she taking all these pills? Are these pills even compatible with can you mix these
Oh, yeah.
pills and still be okay? Is this gonna um involve something in her head? Like, what's going on here? He goes, well, I don't know. I said, wait a minute, you telling me you don't know? You're a doctor and you prescribing my mother these pills and you don't know?
Yep.
So that right there just opened my mind to something. They just want to push these pills because it's money for them.
Well,
So
furthering that, I'll share a quick story with you because I'm actually writing this for the novel at the moment. And it's again, without going into a whole lot of detail, there's a question that's asked a lot of the time, and it's been asked throughout the ages. Can a person with bipolar-like symptoms, for example, can it be triggered by something, and then can the person have enough strength to come back to their normal selves? So that's a question that's been asked, and my answer to that, because of my own experience, is absolutely. All you need is the right components. So my own story, further on what you were saying there, was I had a major flare-up of colitis in 2015 and basically was diagnosed prednisone, which is a steroid. So we get that under control. 2017, I have a calcium deposit that shoots up into my tendons in my left arm, excruciatingly painful, and I'm injected with steroids.
wow.
Here's the crazy thing. We didn't know this at the time, but my body is highly allergic to steroids. Now, we knew this in 2015. I'd had something similar in 2012, gone through a whole breakup and relationship and stuff because I wasn't aware of what was going on. And because, again, people around me at that time, were just like, well, this is the way that he is. It's like, you're telling me I can be fine 1 minute and then this guy the next?
Right.
No, sorry. So I started playing with that idea. And this all really happened. So, I have you take the pills, you do all that stuff. For the first week, you feel great. You literally feel like, incredible. It's beyond words. Then the second week, you start to feel a little bit iffy. By the third week, you are feeling all over the place. And it's what I call like a mood enhancer. So if you feel really happy, or if you feel slightly happy, you're going to feel elated. If you feel slightly sad, you're going to feel depressed and ready to take your own life. If you're feeling, a little bit aroused, you're going to be the randiest guy on the planet. And if you feel a tiny fragment of anger or frustration, you're going to be like the Incredible Hulk stepbrother. And
Right.
all of those things I had experienced. So 2017, we knew that I had, these very, very, very crazy effects, to this medication. And in 2017, when I went for treatment on my shoulder, I was just like, guys, look, here's the crazy thing. I don't want to be injected by this stuff, but please, is this safe to take? The lady said, yep, absolutely. She injects me. She says it's going to stay localized within you and your shoulder. I should have listened at that point. I mean, there has to be another way of getting rid of a calcium deposit. So she injects me with like 65 milligrams of steroid, which is a humongous dose.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of times people have to whittle off this stuff. I had the shakes, I had this, that, and the other. And then only after she had told me this, she told me two things. First of all, you need to stay in the hospital for 15 minutes because you may go into anaphylactic shock.
Wow.
And the second thing is, we need you to sign a waiver that says you agreed wholeheartedly to this. Now, we don't pay for our medication over here under the governmental, under our current government in Scotland. But at the same point, it's like, you've injected me with this stuff. It's now in my system. I can't get it out. It took years for me, and very nearly ended my marriage because I was just so out of my head.
Right.
And now, I mean, now I think I'm down to very, very minimal medication now with regards to colitis. And the more that I evolve, the more that I grow, the more that I develop, and everything else that's there, the less that actually has, because the body is actually physically capable of healing itself.
Right.
Again, something else that people don't know about, and it's being aware of these things. It's being aware of what's going on. Like you said, all that medication that's there, you're being pumped with a man-made drug. Now,
That's right.
Do I believe you have a lot of good people that are working for the pharmaceuticals? Absolutely.
Yes.
Do I believe there are some people at the top that are, raking the money in? Absolutely. Do I also believe with the Native Americans, who I have got a very deep connection with, that it is possible, like you said, to be able to go into certain locations, pick the right herbs, the right flowers, the right plants, the right whatever, and have that heal you? Yes, because that is the way that the earth has been created. This is not by accident.
That's right.
Um, so I'm very, very wary now, like yourself. And that was part of the reason when the vaccine came up, I was like, nope, straight from the get go. I was like, nope, because I don't know what's in that drug. I know that Pfizer was taken to court. I know they were ordered to pay hundreds of billions of dollars because they cut corners. I know a lot of these things, and it's all out there, folks. So nothing. If you question anything that I'm saying, go and research it.
That's right.
Because there is a chance that I may be incorrectly informed. But I think that's the biggest thing is being aware, like you said, making sure to really research everything that's there, and don't just look in one place for research, because clues are all over the place. It's really important.
Right. And you made a good point with the steroid, because that happens all over. I work out. Go to the gym. I work out. People sometimes think I take steroids because I'm a big guy. You feel me? But this is all natural. I was born like this. I was born to be right. Yeah. So I seen the mood swings and people that do take it.
Oh yeah.
1 minute they good, 1 minute they bad. 1 minute they breaking down things, 1 minute they crying. Mood swings. And you're right. You don't know what you're taking, or it's being pumped into you. And same thing with with the vaccine. I don't put nothing in my body that I don't know about. I just don't do that.
Yeah.
And that's why I be scared to go to hospitals when I'm not feeling well. Yeah. I talk to my ancestors, say, hey, I'm feeling this way. What should I take? Oh, you take some lemon, take some tea, squeeze the lemon, put some honey in it, go for a run, sweat it out. And I do things and I feel much better.
Correct.
Correct.
Because here's the crazy. Well, I was just going to say it last. What was it? 2020. I talking about all this. I'd gotten myself so stressed out. There were so many things that come out, and I've just seen Joe that's come to join us on the show as well.
Hi, Joe.
Joe sometimes can get really stressed out with things. So we were talking about this, but because I was so nervous when I began my podcast in 2020, I ended up tearing my midsection from just under the breastbone down to just above the navel. Excruciatingly painful. I ended up after I want to say maybe a month or two of trying to cope with this pain. Ended up at 3:00 in the morning of having to go to the hospital. First thing that they do, first of all, they thought I was having a heart attack because of where the pain was, and they wouldn't listen. But the second thing was, it was like, okay, we'll just give you some pills, for the pain. So I take the pills, and immediately the pain goes. I'm fine. But then it kept coming and kept coming. The one thing that helped the pain, I lay on the sofa, I watched my favorite movies for about 2 weeks straight, and I was good. What my body needed was rest. It didn't need pills.
Right. You see? So this is it's crazy. This is why, people need to research, people need to pay attention on your surrounding and what's going on in this world. We're being pumped with 90% of lies and maybe 10% a truth, and we need to find out that 10%, because the 90% of lies we've been taught, for centuries, from your parents to their grandparents, all lies. So it's good to have people like yourself, putting out great messages out there, writing these books to educate the people on what's going on, and bring them to light, man. Because the thing with and I feel bad for a lot of minorities, because we've been taught a lot of lies. We've been fed a lot of lies, and for so many years. So when you try to shake us up to reality, to what's really going on, it's hard to understand it. It's hard to embrace it. It's hard to understand it because we've been taught lies for centuries, and those lies have been taught, among generations and generations and generations. So when we come in contact with people that do know, we say, wait a minute. I've been taught this all my life. So you don't know what you're talking about.
Because it sounds alien a lot of the times. And,
Yes.
And it is. I mean, there's a lot of folks, that'll, I remember having this conversation during Thanksgiving. People were like, oh, it's amazing. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I was like, do you know the real story behind, and this was Americans, obviously. It's like, do you know the real story behind Thanksgiving? And people will love you until they deem that you're challenging their views and their beliefs and their ideologies and everything. And I tried to do it in as relaxed manner as possible, and I know, again, throughout history, a lot of the stuff that happened, whether or not it was to races, whether or not it was to, and fill in the blanks, minorities, blacks, whites, yellows, greens, pinks, whatever, a lot of it was really going on, or certainly came to light in the 1800s. The thought of taking anybody, whether it was a black man, black woman, black child, a Native American, a Chinaman, China woman, and making them your property. It's like, guys, what the heck is going on in your head? And again, because of how people are conditioned in such, dare I say it, an evil manner. Sometimes I teach, does good and evil really exist, or is it something that man has really created? It's an expression, certainly, of evil. When someone believes that, that they can own somebody else. But it wasn't just with the stories that we know, obviously, with plantation works and slave ships, and then the Native Americans been taken off. And I know it's really sensitive, even to this day. People from China being brought over in the exact same conditions. But guess what? The white guys, men, women, children who were living out in the streets, they had the same oppression. It's just it was squashed down a lot by the powers that be. It was often the powers that be that used their money and their influence and their wealth, believing, oh, we're amazing, we're wonderful, we're this, that, the other.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of this stuff came from. And it's like, guys, do you realize, and this happened over and over again, that when a person would fall from wealth, for example, they would also fall from grace. They'd fall from banks, the bank's trust. They would fall from their friendship group and everything else. And it's like you were only friends with these people and you were only family, similar to some groups today, as long as you were paying them or as long as you had the money.
That's right.
When you lose the money, that's where the phrase that the money is the root of all evil. And I was doing a teaching on this yesterday. Money is not the root of all evil. It's an inanimate object. How can it be evil? Right. It's the expression of it and how it's used, like so many things. And it comes back to, again, this mindset that's there, buying up Native American land, having resources for injections and basically teasing countries with them and saying, oh, well, we might give them you, but we might not. Having all of this resource at your hands and disposal, and then, just again, dangling people like puppets on a string, and you're thinking, answering your question that we started with, it's like, what do you do in this? And again, can I control that situation? No. Can I control myself? Yes. Look, and the best thing I suppose that I can do for anybody is not to respond with anger or violence, because all that does is fuel the anger and violence. But if I can help someone see a little bit clearly, think a little bit more clearly, and have, again, like I said, the inner engineering, the self-mastery stuff going on, it's keeping them in a better frame of mind more than anything else. Things are often won a lot more with love and with peace than they are with anger and violence. That's a crazy thing, but it's a fact. The sad thing is, with anger and violence, a lot of people have to die, and there's a lot of bloodshed that goes on. And what you said earlier on about the people having food taken away and produce taken away, that happened during the French Revolution.
Yes, it did.
And people people starved, and eventually they turned around and they went to war. And the problem was, out of anger and frustration, bitterness, and all the other stuff that went with it, they wanted blood, and they didn't care where it was going to come from. Eventually, once the monarchy had been taken out, they basically wanted anyone they didn't like. You know, it could be your brother or sister. Your mum's upset you today. Oh, have her executed. Send her to the gallows. You know. And this crazy stuff happened. You know, it was like, oh, so and so said something about the monarchy. They were killed. You know, there was no trial or anything.
Right.
That's why it's so dangerous when you've people in power that are afraid and they do some crazy things.
Yeah, and it's just so true, so true. So I want to talk about your art. I know you're an art teacher.
Yes, indeed.
Tell me about the art.
Normally, actually, when the green screen isn't here, we have paintings all hung up and everything, but we're trying a new look when we're doing these shows. So that's why the green screen is behind me, folks. So artwork. I began as an artist when I was 17 years old. So we're talking now nearly 2 decades. And I just knew in my own self that I didn't want to, and there's nothing wrong with this, folks, but for me and my walk, it didn't fit. It didn't feel right. I didn't want to do a 9-to-5 job, basically making someone else's dreams come true. And I was never very good with all this political stuff anyway, and, you know, having to go to work and being miserable. So I started painting when I was 17 years old, and, you know, a lot of things have happened in life, you know, and but painting has been always one of those things that I've been able to reach people, and I always see it as a tool to reach people around the world, to connect with them. They see the artwork and they're like, oh wow, that's really, really cool. I love that. Let's talk. And then you start talking and you realize, oh wait, there's something much deeper going on here. So the artwork, you know, can be anything from pets to people to nature scenes, you know, and a whole
To
plethora
portraits, to portraits, right?
everything in between. Yeah. And each project to me is something really, really special. And then what was it 2020, when I brought out my first book, The Battles We'll Face, I used a lot of my artwork in that book because I was like, it gives people an association. They may not remember a chunk of text on anxiety, but they can remember a picture of a stag in the Northern Lights, for example, that says anxiety is caused by fear of the past, fear of the future, what could be, what has been. They remember that. And then they're like, okay, now I remember the rest of the topic, which is, you know, going further and saying, is your fear rational or is it irrational? And then starting to work through all of that. So they're little triggers that are through there. And then with my new novel series that'll be coming out in November, there's a whole host of new artwork that's going to be coming out for there that's only going to be accessible and visible in the book, which I'm really excited about. So it's tremendous fun, and it's been incredible to see how it's grown organically. You know, we're not the biggest, but hey, we're still 20 years of, we'll say 20 years later, 2 decades later, we're still in the hunt. You know, we're still in the race, still in the fight, where a lot of people who were churning out millions and millions, you know, of dollars, pounds, yen, cents, whatever, had gone under, you know, for one reason or another, which is fantastic. Not that they went under, but it's fantastic. We're still, you know, still there all these years later and still connecting with those people.
Well, who are some of your best authors or book writers, or whatever you want to call it?
You know, I mean, that's
that inspired you.
That inspires me. That's much easier. That's much easier.
Let's just say inspires you.
I would say, first of all, that comes to mind would be Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer was a phenomenal, to me, a phenomenal communicator in the realm of, I suppose, self-help and spiritualism. He started out as a psychologist and teaching in psychology, and eventually moved more to spirituality. But he was the one that the divine spirit of God had chosen to, in some ways, cross my path, shall we say, when I was really struggling. And he was the one who's listening to his audiobook, Everyday Wisdom. You know, within twice of listening to that, it's an hour-long audiobook. You know, for me, all anxiety was gone. All the bitterness had gone. Everything had gone. It was more like his spirit had touched mine. And it was incredible. I mean, you've so many more phenomenal authors. Ralph Waldo Emerson is another one that I thoroughly enjoy because, again, and one of his quotes that I love, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, and I'll paraphrase it. I believe it's in his book Nature, and he says, you guys have had your experience with God. God has revealed himself to you in whatever way he has chosen to, or she, or whatever you want to believe in. How about you let this age, this group, this generation have their own divine encounters with God rather than all the religious stuff that's put on top of that? And I was like, wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
There was one book actually that I came across last year, and the name of the author escapes me, but it was called The Alchemist. And it was a phenomenal book. I think it was Peter something. His name, like I said, his name escapes me. But he was talking basically about this young man's journey. And again, he's always searching for the answers outside of himself. But one phrase that came out of this, and Joe will Joe probably will echo this because we've talked about it a lot, is notice the omens. It's very fitting, obviously, for what we're talking about today. Notice the omens. There are telltale signs everywhere, of things that are there. So, it's important to notice the omens and just be aware of what's going on. But those certainly are three of my favorites. There's a lot more for sure.
Wow.
Because I mean, now that my eyes tend not to work and absorb information like the majority of normal people, I listen to audiobooks. So last year, I think I maybe covered about 765 audiobooks from February through to December. This year, I'm going to try and break the 1,000.
Awesome.
There's always conditioning going on for sure.
That's right. What do you love most of teaching? What do you love most about it?
I think honestly, the style of teaching that I have is very different to the masses, whether it be as life coaches or gurus. I don't call myself either. I just call myself a mentor now because I don't really want to be labeled at all if I can help it. But certainly under that. But one of the things that I love teaching, or one of the things I love about teaching, whether or not it's art or whether or not it's inner engineering, self-mastery, is when you see a student really get it, or someone that's been going through a heck of a lot of difficulties, and you can sit down with them and maybe in an hour or in half an hour, and sometimes 15 minutes or less, you can sit down with them and you can say, look, this is the reason why you are feeling like this. This is the reason you are going through this. I remember one of my favorite clients. He was a young teenage boy, didn't have a clue what he wanted to do with his life, and he had a very messy background. And I remember meeting with him. I met a couple of occasions in particular. And the first one, he ended up getting a plan for his life, and he wanted to be a history teacher. And I was like, okay, this is where you want to be. Now we've got to figure out the steps on how you're going to get there. And he was more than capable. The second time, he decided that he wanted to get a job, but he didn't have a clue how to get a job. Like many kids don't, because it's not taught in school. 3 things that need to be taught in school: how to make money, how to market and sell, and how to get a job. And it's very simple. So I sat down with him and I said, okay, there's a blueprint to getting a job. And you don't go in there and you say, well, I'd like this job because I want the money, or that's obvious. You wouldn't be there otherwise. What you actually look, or what the employee is or the employer is looking for from an employee is, what can you do to keep the cogs turning? What can you do to improve my business? And when you can sit down and say, Mr. X, Mrs. X, I've, since this job came available, I've explored a number of different areas within your business. And I believe that if you do this, this, and this is going to be, your result. You're going to increase your income, you're going to decrease your outgoings, and you're also going to improve your customer service. If you don't get at least a second or third interview at that point, I would be amazed. Kids as young as 16 have been doing that stuff. Donald Miller's son, I believe, one of Donald Miller's clients' sons had read his book, Building a Story Brand Business, and another one of my favorite authors, and, used this formula. And he was like, the kid's too young to actually get a job, but come back in like 6 months and you'll be almost like in a management position, because it was so articulate of what he put forth. And again, it's knowing these things. So I love, when a student or a client really gets it and they switch on. And, for me, this is just beginning. This is just starting out. And in doing shows like this, which I very much appreciate, and then Joe's show when we do that together, the aim is obviously to be reaching a lot more people, working with them in groups and one-on-one, and eventually getting back to public speaking as well.
Right. You also have a #1 seller, right?
I do indeed.
What's the name of that book?
That is The Battles We All Face. That's the one we looked at a little while ago. And it's The Battles We All Face, Hope in Times of Uncertainty, available from Amazon, or if you would like, the audiobook is available from our website, thejohnmorris.co.uk, and it's actually narrated by me. I do all of my own stuff, so it's literally like having me in your ears for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever it is. It's become our bestseller, and really reach people around the world in an incredible way. And like I say, I think it breaks down a lot of situations that people really struggle with, like how to move on after a loss, how to let go of things, and just really understanding these things and breaking them down in as simple way as I know how to. And it was a fantastic process. It was before I'd gone through the whole enlightened period, but I remember it in the summer of 2020. It was obviously lockdown, but it was a gorgeous summer. And I remember sometimes I would be going outside, and the divine spirit of God would whisper into my ear a sentence or a phrase, and it was literally just like, okay, we now need to go write in the chapter. So I'll go write the chapter, and I go back outside, and then the next chapter would come, and so on and so on. So the book is really exciting. It's done in a very, very different way as well, which I think people will appreciate. And the next one, The Battles Teenagers Face, deals with, I guess, a whole new set of issues that are there, but equally they are issues that the majority of people face all the time. Again, stuff like anxiety, stuff like identity, stuff like being conscious of what's going on, and surroundings and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm excited for that one to be out, hopefully this year or into next year.
You know what I would be excited for?
Go for it.
For you to actually write a movie about this.
It's interesting you say that, because the novel series that I'm working on, that's all been hushed up now basically for the last 5 years, it's due to come out November 17th this year. And I can see, because there's going to be 13 books in that series, no one, really, the exception of my wife, has any knowledge of this.
This is why it'll be interesting for you to do this, because first of all, you're an interesting guy. You're intelligent, and you're on the right path. You're about the people, the truth, and I truly believe that putting your stuff out there on a screen will be an amazing thing to watch.
And the thing is, what people need to know about two things that's going on in the world. Obviously, what we've talked about, but they also need to know from an author point of view and a creative mind point of view, drama is happening around us all the time. You just got to know where to look for it. And when you're writing a novel, there are several fundamental things that you need to write a really good novel, in my opinion. But I suppose the main one is, when you're writing something about historical fiction, all you need to do is write yourself into the story. The story is already there. You just need to write yourself into it and then create whatever you want to create through it. So certainly a TV show, I think, would be really, really cool, because they can go into a lot more depth. And I know the British broadcasting company, BBC over here, they do a phenomenal job with historical fiction. But movies would be cool too.
Yeah. Oh, either a movie or even a series.
Absolutely.
Just give people, a little bit at a time, and kind of reel them in, and say, okay, I got you guys now. I'm gonna give you the truth, the whole film, bam, and just give them. And I think you would do great.
I can almost categorically say, with no uncertainty or anything, that the first book that's going to come out is going to be something really amazing, because it has a real life story in it. It's almost like split up into a play of four parts, and the final part, without giving anything away, is something that really holds true today. It is something that is probably one of the most talked about stories and mysteries of all time,
Wow.
and I'm really excited for it for sure. It's tremendous fun for sure, and to see how all this works. And for me, I think the main goal, as crazy as this sounds, is to be up there and hopefully to outsell J.K. Rowling. And it's not for the money, but the reason being, I guess more than anything, it means complete acceptance of the characters by the people that read it. That's the aim and the goal.
Well, listen, I can't wait for any of this to come out. I definitely going to go online and check out some of your books. Can you tell the viewers exactly where they can go if they need to purchase a book or just
Yep.
look you up and kind of find out more about
Yep.
you?
The best place to go right now is we've brought everything down into one page, and it's thejohnmorris.co.uk. And if you're following me on Instagram as well, you can find the same thing, the John Morris, and you'll find me there.
Right. So I would love to keep you here all day because you're so interesting. You're so John. You're awesome. Listen. You got my mind thinking, and so my cousin Joseph. I'm gonna make that connection with you and him because
Please, yes, absolutely.
you two guys are like out of this world. I think you guys together will build another world.
Be
Right?
incredible.
For real, because you guys are amazing. So I'm gonna make that connection because I know my cousin. He works and stuff, but if he could stay here, he still would have been here. But the fact that you guys are on the same level, and when you talk to him and he tells you what he knows, it's gonna blow your mind. You're gonna be like, "Listen, we need to write another book. We need to write another book."
That's the thing. I mean, I've got two book series that I'm working on now, and because I was asked, what are your plans after this, and I'm like, none. So once I've done that, it's like my divine purpose for that period of time with regards to writing is done. And I had one publisher that we're talking to that was just like, nope, I'm out. If we can't do this for many years, it's like, well, guys, we're talking 13 books in a novel series and 5 or 6 other books. But I've always got other stuff. So you just keep listening for divine guidance more than anything else, because that's where it comes from. Everything that you need to know is already there, and if it isn't, the divine spirit's just waiting to bring it to you.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to bring you back again because there's much more that I want to ask you and talk about because I know you have a great story, and we want to talk about your podcast and how all that became about and what was the platform. But we're running out of time. I got some other guests coming, but I want to thank you so much for reaching out. I want to thank JoJo for making this connection. She's amazing. People check out the JoJo show as well. She's a great friend of mine. We're working on some things as well. But Morris, thank you for coming on the show. You're amazing. I'm gonna bring you back on in a couple months. Give you some time to work on some other stuff so we can talk some more. And thank you, man. Thank you so much for taking this time to come on the show.
I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you very, very much.
Okay. All right. So I'll see you later. Peace. Well, everyone, that was John Morris from Scotland. Amazing. See, these are the type of interviews I love to do, with amazing people like that, because there's so much stuff out there, the people we need to learn about and learn what's going on in our community, learning what's going on in our world. And, and when we have individuals like Mr. John Morris here, man, he opens up a whole new can of worms, and it really kind of opens up your mind to think about things because we're so used to being followers instead of leaders, and we need to really open up our minds to what's going on around us, man, because it's not going to be good, you know. So people, we need to prepare ourselves for what's coming, right? And we need to uh, protect ourselves from what's coming. And then again, you know, remember that you always have a choice. We always have a choice, and whatever your belief is, you know, that's your personal thought. But let's stick together. Let's work together, and and you know, and really do some research on certain things that are happening today. All right. So I want to thank everybody for logging in. I want to thank everybody for sharing. Remember to share, because sharing is caring. You feel me? Um, and tune in at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, we got Brent Gaskin coming on the show. You know, all the way from North Carolina, and he's an actor, producer. This will do it all. So we'll be talking to him at 3 p.m. Make sure y'all tune in. I'm gonna go get my co-host. He'll be here at 3 p.m. with me for the rest of the night. Listen, we'll be here till 8 o'clock tonight. We got some amazing shows, amazing people coming on. So tune in, man. We're gonna learn some things today. And big shout out to everybody that's on here. Jojo, Brent Gaskin, Bella Levy, Joseph Aker, my cousin Joseph Aker, Sean Trapp, artist Sean Trapp. Big shout out to John Trapp. We. My co-host IG, Shauna Gibson, sister of Tyrese Gibson, actor Tyrese Gibson, was in the building as well. Big shout out to Shauna Gibson. Make sure you guys check her out on her G Queen live experience show. She's an amazing woman. I love her to death. She's so dope. So make sure you guys can check her out as well on her show, and show us some love, as well as JoJo on the show as well. She's got another podcast. So make sure y'all tune in and check her out. Big shout out to my brother Mike Wagner as well, also talk show radio host Mike Wagner. Anyone that wants to be on any of those platforms, if you don't know who they are, you can reach out to me or reach out to them personally and get on that show. And you know, they're amazing people. So Mike Wagner, Shauna Gibson, the JoJo Show, DTF Radio. Oh no, that's DTF Radio. That's in Manhattan, New York. John Morris. He has a podcast, so you can get on the John Morris Show as well. Who else? Nina Bell. Brandy Martin, she's coming on the show as well today. Amazing woman. She's been on the show before. She's dope. She's you know, in all these other podcasts. So there's platforms here, people, that you can come on and you know, and talk about your what you're doing and what your craft is, or whatever it is that you're doing, your book, whatever it is that you're doing. This is what these platforms are here for. So if you want exposure, you want promotion, make sure you tune into all these platforms. I pretty much know a lot of them, and we can get you on the show. Also, there's another guy that I want to send big shout out to, my brother Joseph Williams, all the way in California. Big shout out to Joseph. Big shout out to my brother, talk show host as well, radio host Tyrone Tan, from LA. I met him out in LA. Great guy. So he's also a host. And shout out to everybody around the world that tunes into my show, because there's too many people for me to shout out. But tune in today, 3 o'clock. Brent Gaskin will be on the show. Amazing guy. We'll be talking to him at 3 o'clock. So thank y'all for watching. It's your boy Don Vic from the Don Vic Show. And I'm going to let y'all go with peace, love, respect. And I'll see y'all at 3 p.m. So make sure y'all tune in. You heard? You heard?